The first time I saw that smile on Layla's face, I felt cold inside. It was the kind of smile people wear when they think the world is finally theirs. Like they've already counted the money. Like they've already won the war. Like you're just the last door they need to close behind you. I was standing in the hallway of my own house, holding a cup of tea that suddenly tasted like metal. My hands were shaking, not from age, but from a feeling I couldn't name yet. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh paint, Layla's favorite. She had been refreshing my home since my son married her. New curtains, new furniture, new rules, new control. And there she was, leaning against the doorframe, arms folded, watching me like I was a guest who stayed too long. "You should rest more, Dad," she said softly. Dad. She never called me that before. Not until she needed something. I looked past her into the living room. My son, Cameron, sat on the couch, staring at the floor like a man who forgot how to be a man. His shoulders were slumped. His face had that empty look I hated, like someone had taken his spirit and replaced it with silence. "Cameron," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" Layla stepped forward before he could answer. "He's tired," she replied. "Work has been stressful." Work. That word was her shield. She used it to explain everything. Why Cameron didn't visit me alone anymore. Why he didn't answer my calls. Why he looked like a shadow in his own life. Then she walked closer, lowered her voice, and said something that changed everything. "Also, we're going to need you to sign a few papers soon. Just for planning." Planning. I stared at her. Planning for what? She tilted her head, still smiling. For the future. My future. My house. My savings. My land. Everything I built with 2 hands and a back that still aches when it rains. Layla turned and walked away like she'd said something normal. Like she hadn't just placed her hand on the lock of my life. I stood there frozen, listening to her heels click on the floor, tap, 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 like a countdown. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Layla wasn't waiting for the end. She was pushing it. But here's the part she didn't know. I had already prepared something. Quietly, secretly, because I had seen people like her before. And I knew one thing for sure. When someone thinks they've already won, that's the perfect time to flip the table. So I let her smile. I let her believe. And I waited for the day the will would be read. Let me tell you who I was before Layla walked into our family. I'm a simple man. I built my life slowly. Not with luck, not with shortcuts. Just work. For years, I ran a small construction supply business. Cement, tools, deliveries, contracts. Nothing glamorous. But it was honest. It fed my family. It paid for Cameron's education. It kept a roof above our heads when times were hard. My wife, Isel, she was the heart of the house. The kind of woman who could calm a storm with one look. When she passed away, the walls of the house felt too big. The silence sat with me like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. Cameron became my reason to wake up. He was a good son. Gentle, smart, maybe too gentle for this world. He didn't like conflict. He avoided hard conversations. He believed people were mostly good. That was his weakness. When Cameron introduced Layla, he looked like a boy again. Excited, hopeful, proud. "Dad," he said, "she's different. She understands me." Layla stood beside him, perfectly dressed, hair smooth, eyes bright. She shook my hand with confidence, like she'd already practiced in a mirror. "It's an honor to meet you," she said. I wanted to believe her. At first, she was polite, helpful even. She offered to cook, to clean, to organize. After my wife passed, the house had become messy in ways I didn't notice until someone pointed it out. Layla pointed it out gently with a laugh, like she was doing me a favor. "Let's make this place feel alive again," she said. And Cameron loved her for that. They got married fast. Too fast for my liking. But grief makes a father tired, and love makes a son stubborn. After the wedding, Layla suggested they move in with me. "It's better this way," she said. "We can take care of you. Families should stay together." Those words sounded sweet. But I noticed something. She didn't say, "We want to be with you." She said, "We can take care of you." like I was a task. The first few months were fine. Then the small changes started. She rearranged the kitchen, then the living room, then my bedroom for better air. She replaced my old chair because it looked worn. She donated some of my clothes because they were outdated. Outdated. Like me. Then she started speaking for Cameron, answering for him, deciding for him, slowly shaping him into someone quieter, softer, easier to move. One day I asked him, "Are you happy?" He smiled, but it looked forced. "Of course, Dad." Then he glanced at Layla before he finished speaking. That glance, that tiny fear, it told me everything. And that's when I started paying attention. Because I didn't just lose my wife. I refused to lose my son. The first real crack showed up in a place I never expected. My own office. I still kept a small office room at home. Old files, business papers, bank documents, the boring things that hold your whole life together. I liked knowing where everything was. It made me feel safe. One afternoon, I walked in and saw my drawer slightly open. Just slightly. Maybe you don't understand why that matters. But when you live alone for years, you notice every detail. A chair moved an inch. A paper turned upside down. A missing pen. Someone had been in there. I checked my folders. Everything looked normal at first. Then I noticed one file was out of order, the one labeled property. My stomach tightened. That night at dinner, I asked Layla casually, "Did you go into my office today?" She didn't even blink. "No. Why would I?" Her voice was smooth. Too smooth. Cameron didn't look up from his plate. I turned to him. "Cameron, did you?" He hesitated. Just for a second. Then he said, "Layla was just cleaning. Maybe she moved something by accident." That answer hurt more than the lie. Because it wasn't his voice. It was hers, coming out of his mouth. After dinner, I waited until I heard their bedroom door close. Then I walked to the hallway and listened. Yes, listened. I'm not proud. But a father knows when his house is no longer his. Layla's voice floated through the door like poison wrapped in perfume. "He's stubborn," she said, "but he's old. He can't hold on forever." Cameron's voice was softer. "He's my father, and we're your future," Layla snapped. "Do you want to struggle like him? Working until you're broken?" Silence. Then Cameron spoke, barely audible. "No." Layla's tone softened again. "Then we need security. We need the house, the land, the accounts. It's only fair. You're his only son." Only son. Those two words were her favorite weapon. Because if Cameron was the only son, then everything would naturally go to him. And if everything went to him, Layla would hold it in her hands like a crown. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. It wasn't just greed. It was strategy, a quiet takeover. Over the next weeks, the pressure increased. Layla started bringing friends over, people who asked too many questions about property and business. She talked about selling land, about investments, about making money work. Then came the day she placed papers in front of me. "Just sign," she said gently. "It's a power of attorney. In case anything happens." It's normal. Normal. I picked up the pages and scanned them. My eyes aren't perfect, but I can read enough to know danger when I see it. It wasn't just in case anything happens. It was control, full access, full authority. My accounts, my properties, my decisions, all handed Cameron. And Cameron would hand it to her. I looked up. "No." Layla's smile twitched. Just a little. "Dad," she said, voice still sweet, "you don't trust your own son?" That was the trap. Because if I said yes, I looked cruel. If I said no, I looked weak. So I did something else. I smiled back. "I trust my son. I don't trust papers I didn't request." Cameron finally raised his head. His eyes looked tired. Guilty. Layla's gaze hardened for a second. Then she laughed. Okay. No pressure. But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said, "Fine. We'll do this another way." And in that moment, I realized the fight was no longer hidden. It had started. The betrayal didn't come like a punch. It came like a slow door closing. One evening, I returned home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. Quiet like something was being hidden. I walked into the living room and saw Layla sitting at my desk with my laptop open. My laptop. I froze. She didn't jump. She didn't look guilty. She simply closed the laptop calmly and looked at me like I had interrupted her. "Oh," she said, "you're home early." I stared at the laptop. "Why are you using that?" She shrugged. "Cameron said it's fine." Cameron. Always Cameron. Always a shield. I walked closer and opened the laptop again. My email was open. My bank messages. My property documents. My private life spread out like a map on a table. My voice dropped low. "Layla, this is not okay." She leaned back in the chair. "You're acting like I'm stealing." I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "What do you call this?" She stood up slowly. "I call it protecting our family." Our. Not my. Not Cameron's. Not even hers. Our. Like she owned the word. Then she stepped closer and said the cruelest thing I had heard since my wife died. "You need to accept reality. This house will be ours soon anyway." Soon. That word hit me like ice water. I walked straight to Cameron's room. I didn't knock. I opened the door. He was sitting on the bed, scrolling his phone like a teenager avoiding life. "Cameron," I said, voice shaking now, "is this true? Are you letting her do this?" He looked up slowly, and for a moment I saw my son again. The boy who used to run to me after school. The young man who promised me, after his mother passed, that he'd always stand by me. But then Layla appeared behind me in the doorway, and Cameron's face changed. He swallowed. "Dad, it's not like that." "Then what is it?" I demanded, "because she's in my accounts, my emails, my documents." Cameron rubbed his face. "She's just helping. You forget things sometimes." "Forget?" I felt my chest burn. "I don't forget who I am." Layla's voice turned sharp. "Maybe you should start thinking about retirement." Retirement from my own life. I stepped closer to Cameron, lowering my voice. "Son, look at me. Is this what you want?" Cameron's eyes flickered. There was fear there, confusion, maybe shame, but he didn't answer. He didn't defend me. He didn't tell her to step back. He just sat there, silent. And that silence was a betrayal. Because when your own son refuses to stand with you, you start to feel like a stranger in your own blood. That night, I locked my office door. I changed passwords. I called my lawyer the next morning, not to start a war, to prepare for one. Still, even then, I wasn't ready for what came next. Because Layla wasn't just trying to take control. She was trying to erase me. A week later, I got a call from my bank. They asked casually, "Sir, did you authorize the addition of a new account holder?" My heart stopped. "No." The banker hesitated. "We receive a request with your signature." Signature. I drove to the bank, so fast my hands were sweating on the steering wheel. The banker showed me the paper. It looked like my signature, but it wasn't. Someone had copied it. My vision blurred with anger. I walked out of that bank, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not sadness, not grief, fire. And as I sat in my car, staring at my trembling hands, one thought kept repeating in my mind. If she can forge my name, what else can she do? And how far will she go before I stop? I didn't explode. Not yet. People like Layla expect you to explode. They want it. Your anger becomes their proof. Your reaction becomes their story. So I did the opposite. I became calm. I became polite. I became predictable. And that was my first move. At breakfast, I smiled and said, "Layla, I've been thinking. Maybe I've been too strict." Her eyes lit up for half a second. She hit it quickly, but I saw it. Cameron looked confused. "Dad." I patted his shoulder like everything was fine. "I'm getting older. Maybe it's time I start trusting you two more." Layla leaned forward slightly. "That's very wise." Wise. She said it like she was congratulating a child for learning to share. But inside, I wasn't surrendering. I was setting the stage. I met my lawyer, Raheem, in his office that afternoon. He was an old friend, sharp mind, quiet voice, and the kind of patience that can outlast storms. I told him everything. The forged signature attempt, the pressure, the papers, the control. Raheem listened without interrupting. Then he asked one simple question. Do you want justice or revenge? I stared at the wall for a moment. I want my son back, and I want her to stop. Raheem nodded slowly. Then we will do this clean. Legal. Strong. We created a plan built on one principle. Let her think she's winning. We updated my will. Carefully, legally, with witnesses, with everything locked down so nothing could be challenged easily. Not because I wanted to punish Cameron, but because I wanted to protect what my wife and I built. But the will wasn't the whole plan. The will was the stage. The real plan was a trap. Raheem suggested something smart. Set conditions, not cruel conditions. Fair ones. Conditions that would reveal Layla's true face in front of everyone. And I knew exactly how to do that. Because Layla had one weakness. She couldn't hide her greed when she felt close to prize. So I started feeding her what she wanted. I began talking openly about the future. I mentioned my health, small complaints, harmless exaggerations. My back hurts more these days. I said at dinner, maybe I should see a doctor. Layla's eyes sharpened. Are you okay? Her concern sounded real, but her gaze looked like someone checking the time. I even invited her into my office once, pretending I needed help organizing papers. She almost ran in. Oh, of course, she said, already reaching for folders. I watched her hands move too quickly. Her eyes scanned names, numbers, property lines. I made sure she saw enough to feel confident. And then I gave her the biggest bait. One night, I said casually, I think I'll make things simple. Everything will go to Cameron. It's natural. Layla froze for a heartbeat. Then she smiled so wide it looked painful. Cameron looked uneasy. Dad, you don't have to. I raised a hand. No, son, it's fine. I've decided. Layla reached out and touched my arm like we were close, like she hadn't tried to steal from me. That's the right decision, she whispered. Right. For her. And as I watched her walk away that night, practically glowing, I realized something else. She wasn't just waiting for the will. She was planning what she'd do after. Selling, spending, controlling Cameron completely. Maybe even pushing me out of the house before the ink dried. So I made one more move. I called the people she didn't expect me to call. My extended family. My old business partners. Even the neighbor Annies who saw everything and forgot nothing. I didn't tell them everything. I didn't need to. I just said, soon there will be a meeting about my will. I want everyone present. Layla overheard that, and the next morning, she started acting like a queen preparing for her crown, buying new clothes, fixing her hair, speaking sweetly to me in front of others, because she thought the will reading was her victory party. She had no idea it was her courtroom, and I was the one holding the evidence. The closer we got to the will reading, the bolder Layla became. It started with small disrespect that she no longer bothered to hide. She began calling the house our home, in front of guests. She gave away my wife's old jewelry to keep things modern. She even tried to convince Cameron to change the locks. Just for safety, she said. Safety. From who? From me? One afternoon, I came home and found a real estate brochure on the table. Pictures of luxury apartments, bright kitchens, balconies with city views. Layla was sitting with a pen, circling prices. You're thinking of moving? I asked, keeping my voice calm. She didn't even pretend. Not moving. Upgrading. I looked at the paper. With what money? She smiled. Soon. It won't be a problem. Soon again. That word haunted the air like a ghost. Cameron walked in, saw the brochure, and his face tightened. Layla, what is this? She waved him off. Relax. I'm planning. We need to think ahead. He looked at me, and I could see he wanted to say something, but he didn't. The old Cameron would have argued. The new Cameron just breathed quietly, like he was trying not to drown. That night, I heard them arguing behind their door. Not loud, but intense. Layla, You're too soft. Cameron, he's still here, Layla. Layla, not for long. Those words made my hands clench. Not for long. She spoke about my life like it was a timer. I could have confronted her. I could have shouted. I could have thrown them both out. But then what? Cameron would follow her. He'd choose the woman who controlled him over the father who challenged him. I had seen it happen to other men. So I held my anger like a hot stone. And I waited. 2 days before the reading, Layla made her most dangerous move. I received a call from a clinic. They said someone had booked an appointment for me. Full medical checkup, including mental evaluation. Mental. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. I asked the receptionist, "Who booked this?" She gave me Layla's name. So that was her plan. If she could paint me as confused, unstable, forgetful, then she could challenge anything I said, any decision I made, any will I signed. She could take my voice. That night at dinner, I looked at Layla and said gently, "Thank you for caring about my health." Her eyes narrowed. Of course. Cameron shifted uncomfortably. I continued. But I canceled the appointment. I'll decide my own medical matters. Layla's smile dropped. "You're being stubborn again," she hissed, not even hiding it now. I leaned in slightly. "No, Layla, I'm being awake." The air got heavy. For a moment, I thought she might explode. But instead, she did something worse. She laughed softly and said, "Fine, be awake." Then she looked at Cameron and said, "Just remember, when everything is settled, you won't have to deal with this stress anymore." Cameron stared at his plate, and I realized she wasn't just trying to win against me. She was training my son to see me as a problem, an obstacle, a burden. That was the real betrayal. Not the papers, not the money. It was a slow poisoning of a son's mind against his father. That night, I went in my office, closed the door, and opened the folder Raheem gave me. Inside were documents, witness statements, and one letter I had written with my own hand, sealed, dated, and signed in front of the right people. A letter that would be read out loud when the time came. I stared at it for a long time. My hands were steady now, because I knew something Layla didn't. She had been building her future on the idea that I was alone. But I wasn't alone. Not anymore. And in 2 days, in a quiet lawyer's office, with everyone watching, her smile was gone. The morning of the will reading, Layla acted like it was a holiday. She wore a black dress, but it wasn't morning black. It was expensive black. The kind people wear when they want to look serious while collecting something valuable. Cameron wore a plain shirt, eyes tired, like he hadn't slept. He barely spoke during the drive. I sat in the back seat, watching the city pass by, thinking about my wife, about what she would say if she saw this. I could almost hear her voice. "Protect your son, but don't let him be destroyed." When we arrived at Raheem's office, the room was already full. My brother, my cousins, a few old business partners, even 2 neighbors, women who loved tea and truth. Layla paused at the door, surprised. She whispered, "Why are so many people here?" I smiled politely, because family matters should be seen, not hidden. Raheem greeted us, calm as always. He motioned for everyone to sit. The room felt like a courtroom, even though nobody said it out loud. Layla sat beside Cameron, holding his arm like a leash. Raheem opened the folder and said, "We are here to read Mr. Farid's will and final instructions." Layla's lips tightened with excitement. I watched her carefully. Raheem began with the basics. A few small bequests, charity donations, gift to relatives, something for my late wife's sister. Layla looked bored, like these were meaningless appetizers. Then Raheem said, "Now we come to the main estate." Layla leaned forward. Cameron swallowed. Raheem read clearly. The house and all related property will be placed into a family trust. Layla blinked. "A trust?" she whispered, loud enough for others to hear. Raheem continued. "The trust will be managed by a neutral trustee appointed by this office." Layla's smile started to fade. Raheem read on. "Cameron Farid Aglu will be the primary beneficiary under conditions." Conditions. That word landed like thunder. Layla's head snapped up. What conditions? Raheem didn't look at her. He looked at the paper. Condition 1. The house cannot be sold for 10 years. Layla's mouth opened slightly, then closed. Condition 2. No money or property from the trust can be transferred to a spouse directly. All distributions go through the trustee based on verified need. Layla's face turned pale. She squeezed Cameron's arm so hard he winced. Raheem continued, calm and steady. Condition 3. If Cameron is divorced at any time due to financial misconduct, manipulation, or fraud, the trust shifts entirely to the next listed beneficiaries. Layla stood up sharply. This is ridiculous. The room went silent. Raheem finally looked up. Please sit, Layla Khanum. She didn't sit. She pointed at me. He's doing this to punish me. He never liked me. One of the neighbor aunties whispered. My cousin cleared his throat. Cameron stared at the floor, shaking. Raheem raised his hand slightly. There is more. Layla's breathing got fast. More? What more? Raheem turned a page. And now, he said, there's a personal letter from Mr. Farr to be read aloud. Layla's eyes widened. My letter. Raheem began reading, and my own words filled the room. I am writing this while my mind is clear. I have felt pressure to sign documents I did not request. I have seen attempts to access my accounts and papers without permission. Layla's face froze. Raheem continued. If you are hearing this, it means I am no longer here to speak for myself. So I leave this record. People shifted in their chairs. Layla's voice cracked. That's a lie. Raheem kept reading. I love my son, but I will not allow anyone to use him as a bridge to steal what I built. If you truly love him, you will respect these boundaries. If you don't, this will expose you. Expose. That word hit Layla like a slap. Raheem finished the letter. The room stayed silent for 3 long seconds. Then my brother spoke quietly. Layla, is any of this true? Layla looked around, cornered. She tried to laugh. They're twisting things. But no one laughed with her. Cameron finally lifted his head. His eyes were wet. Not from anger, from realization. He whispered, Layla, did you forge Dad's signature? Layla's head snapped toward him. How dare you? And right there, in front of everyone, she showed her real face. Not the sweet wife, not the caring daughter-in-law, but the furious person who couldn't stand losing control. She stepped toward Raheem. This one won't stand. I'll fight it. Raheem nodded once. You may try, but everything here is properly witnessed, properly documented, and the attempted bank change request has already been recorded. Recorded. Layla's eyes darted to me. Rage and fear mixed together. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. She didn't love my son. She loved the idea of owning his life. Now, the crown she imagined was turning into chains, and everyone could see it. After the reading, Layla didn't speak much. Not because she had nothing to say. Because for the first time, words couldn't save her. We walked out of Raheem's office into bright daylight, and it felt strange, like a storm had happened indoors, and the outside world didn't know. Cameron stood still on the sidewalk, breathing like a man waking up from a long nightmare. Layla pulled his arm. Let's go. Cameron didn't move. She pulled harder. Cameron. He turned to her slowly. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Did you marry me, or did you marry what my father owns? Layla's eyes flashed. How can you ask me that? Cameron's jaw tightened. Answer. That single word, answer, felt like a miracle to me. Layla looked around at the family members nearby, at the eyes watching her, and she did what people like her always do when the mask slips. She blamed someone else. This is your father's fault, she snapped. He poisoned you against me. Cameron shook his head. Slowly. No, you did that yourself. Every time you pushed. Every time you lied. Every time you treated him like he was already gone. Layla's voice rose. So what? You'll choose him over your wife. Cameron's eyes filled with tears. I'm choosing truth over control. Layla stepped back as if slapped. Then she laughed, sharp and bitter. Fine, she hissed. Enjoy your little trust, your little rules. You think you won? You didn't win anything. And then she walked away. No dramatic scene. No screaming fit. Just a woman, leaving when the prize was locked away. Cameron didn't chase her. He stood there shaking and whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry." Those words hurt and healed at the same time. I put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm not perfect," I said, "but I'm still your father." Cameron broke down right there on the sidewalk, covering his face like a child. I didn't tell him to stop crying. Men like us were taught not to cry. But sometimes, tears are the first step back to being human. In the weeks that followed, Layla tried to threaten legal action. But Raheem's documents were strong. The witnesses were real. The trust structure was clear. Every attempt she made only made her look worse. And slowly, she stopped calling. Cameron moved out of the house for a while, staying with my brother, clearing his head. He started therapy. He started speaking again, like a man learning his own voice. One evening, months later, he came back to my house. He brought tea leaves my wife used to buy, the ones with the soft smell that made the kitchen feel warm. He sat across from me and said, "I forgot what peace felt like." I nodded. Peace is quiet. Control is loud. He looked down. "I almost lost you." I took a slow breath. "Yes, but you didn't." And here's what I learned, what I want you to take from my story. Not every betrayal comes from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people sitting at your table. And not every revenge needs fists or shouting or destruction. Sometimes the best revenge is clarity. Paperwork done right. Truth spoken in front of witnesses. A plan built with patience. Because when someone tries to take your life apart quietly, you don't have to scream. You just have to stand firm. And if you're a parent watching your child drift away under someone else's control, remember this. Love doesn't mean you accept everything. Love also means protection. Love means boundaries. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let the truth expose what your heart was too afraid to admit. Layla thought she had won, but when the will was read, she realized the real power was never her hands. It was in the choices I made while I was still standing. And the greatest justice of all, my son finally opened his eyes.